And we'll call to order. We do have a quorum. Ronnie is not here, but he said he will be late. So we'll see if he makes it for some of the rest of the meeting. We do have a quorum. And we'll go ahead and get kicked off with director comments. Don, you want to start?
I was just going to say the same thing about that parking that's in that lot now, what that paved area is. So I noticed that. Plus, there's a lot of millings over there, 3 piles of, what is all that? Where'd that come from?
I'm not sure. That's a question for Brent, if Brent was here, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I would assume it has to do with roads and drainage has a few projects going now. One of them is to do, well, you know this too, juniper, and then they're fixing some on ivy, and if there's a few spot places they're probably the milling from it.
Okay, so that's where they were regrading, I guess, the asphalt, and they're just dumping it there probably then. Okay, I noticed through this subdivision, the streets, some of those are under repair, so, okay, I get it.
They're in the main parking lot, the east parking lot? The piles?
They're up close to the, where the...
That's from down there. They haven't started straightening that road.
But
Yeah, they're doing some,
they have done part of ivy. I haven't looked at juniper, to be honest, but
yeah.
Are we going to be able to use that for the parking lot, the millings? We don't know. Guess we're all asking each other questions.
Yeah, I assume so.
We only know what we're told.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can dump those in some low spots. That's what I'm asking. Yeah. Okay, sorry, we won't ask you any more questions.
I'm good, that's it.
Thomas?
I'd like to welcome Jesse. I'm glad you didn't give up on us, and I'm glad you're here. I have some comments about the internet too, but I can wait until we go through that list if you're going to go through it.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Jesse?
Not realizing that Brent wasn't going to be here tonight, I did have a question for him. A couple meetings ago, there was one thing on the agenda that was about potential businesses for annexation, and he was going to email out a list, kind of like a hot list, and I'm not sure if that ever circulated or not.
Not a hot list, but we have a list of the businesses. But I don't think it's been compiled or sorted or anything.
Yeah, it's a big spreadsheet, and there's a lot of, you have to sift through it to try and figure out what's what, and I don't know, when I looked at it, I could use some help kind of paring it down, because some of it are just property owner names, and you don't know what the business is, if there is one there. It's just property owner names, so it's quite a list. Some of them are businesses, some of them are probably not businesses. So, I mean, if you don't have it, he did send it out. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely email that out.
Okay.
I spoke with Brent about that. I said, this is way too big. It needs to be narrowed down to business names. And he said he was going to try to do that.
Cool.
So he is going to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that was kind of a priority that we discussed a meeting or two ago about pinpointing a few businesses and targeting them. So that's good. Mark? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, otherwise, I'm happy to be here too. All right, thank you.
I was going to say welcome too, and welcome for your persistence, so hopefully that lasts for another 2 years.
Yeah, same, Jesse. Welcome, and glad you were patient. Takes a lot of patience on this committee sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Welcome aboard. Yeah, thanks for your persistence. I didn't know, I could send you an email. I just wanted to bring up to the rest of the board members, if you care to create your own email account that's separate for the EDC. I know some don't care all that much, but it is recommended just in case there's ever inquiry of public information, and again, you can just have the city set it up for you too. In fact, it may be.
Buyer beware.
Yeah. Also, y'all can see Galveston Bay Brewing is, going to town over there. I haven't spoke to him in the past couple of weeks since the barbecue festival, but, or barbecue cook-off. But I don't know if y'all had a chance to talk to Pete. He was there handing out beers, and I think they handed out almost all of them. There was a lot. But I did talk to them for a little bit, and they were super excited about moving over here. They're very anxious. All right, that's all. We'll move on to any unscheduled visitors. Council? None? All right. We'll move on to item number 4, consent agenda. I don't know if y'all had a chance to look into this, but there was the addition of the regular and special meeting from September, the minutes from there that were included. So if anybody wants to discuss them, we can. If not, we'll just leave it as is. Everybody good? I know. Okay, item number 5, discussion and possible action to elect EDC board officer positions. This is actually part of the bylaws, and we brought this up a while ago too. It's, I don't think, ever been done necessarily properly in the past few years, but if you look at our bylaws, and I don't think Christy included this in the packet, so I emailed this also just a few hours ago, but in the bylaws it says that we are elected on officers, and it's during a meeting in November. So this is a meeting in November, so we need to go through and elect our officers, keep them as they are. So if anybody wants to open up the discussion. And it doesn't mean that you have to volunteer for anything if you open up the discussion.
If you don't, you will be.
I was told that the newest member got to take over the secretary.
Actually, I did say that, I think.
I'm fine.
Shouldn't it be passed down? So technically it would be Ronnie and then me, right?
That's a very good point. And he's not here so we can elect him if we want to. What else do we have in here we can appoint him to? So, the other positions are president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. And it sounds like Mark, want to make a motion for discussion? I'll make a motion to discuss.
Yep.
Have a second?
Yes, second.
All right, second, Thomas. Okay. And treasurer, we kind of discussed last time, more or less Brent does that, and it wasn't originally included in the bylaws because there are, check writing and other things that the treasurer did customarily, but once Brent was hired on, one of his roles was to do, a chunk of it was to do EDC stuff. So there's really no need to have a treasurer, and I'll keep doing the, snapshot and other stuff. I'll just keep doing that. So we don't have to necessarily elect a treasurer unless somebody wants to.
I really like the snapshot, and I really like the cash flow projection because that's essentially what we need.
It is, and it's a lot more important than the snapshot. If the snapshot wasn't so easy, I probably would just let it go by the wayside, and we just keep the sources and uses, which we can discuss that during the last item. It's probably the best place to discuss it. But if we want to keep everything as is, Thomas is the vice president, myself as president, Mark is secretary, and then not have an official treasurer, we can do that.
Do we have to have a treasurer according to the bylaws?
I think we do have to have a treasurer. We can, I guess I can just be both. Okay. And that's kind of what we discussed last time.
Yep.
And Brent does most of the actual, because he works with the comptroller, and he talks to the CPA.
Let's nominate Johnny Boltinghouse to be both.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Well, I can't say.
I'll second.
Okay. Just seconds. All right, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye, unanimous. Just for technicalities, I guess.
Anything else you'd like to do?
No, I'm good, thank you. My spare time is dwindling.
If not, Ronnie will do it.
Right. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6, and really, I didn't have anything specific to talk about, discussion possible action related to public parking in the town center area. Other than the parking study is underway, and the weekend before last, I actually saw Casey, the rep from Walker Consultants, was actually here too, checking on stuff and doing some counts himself, so they are working on that, and I think what I'm hoping is that's gonna answer some questions, or at least narrow down our options for parking and let us know what direction that we should start looking, because I think that comes into play and affects a lot of the other things that, you know, on the last item as far as town center is concerned. But I kinda kept this on here just in case anyone wanted to discuss parking, since we're in the parking business, apparently.
So when we talked about that proposal, I guess, there was a couple things that we were gonna talk to them, add to that, or what did it end up?
Exactly, we'll have they're doing some counts and stuff, and then we'll have a kickoff meeting, and it'll probably be at the next meeting.
No, so we'll have a separate meeting.
Right, and because there's gonna be some things on there that don't necessarily apply, that I think were just kind of boilerplate things to put in there, and then others I think we brought up at the last meeting that we were wanting to focus on.
So we plan to have them come here?
Right.
For discussion? Okay.
That was part of the contract,
Okay, so
so unless for some reason we don't.
Did we manage to add some to the back end of the deal? Or, because the recommendation and the way forward is where we need the most help. You know, the rest of the stuff is pretty straightforward.
Right, I think we can discuss that at probably the kickoff meeting.
Okay.
but as far as, when we would have them come, I don't know if we got a December meeting coming or not, or would it, so are we talking?
We have a December meeting unless we decide otherwise, but I think there's gonna be quite a few things we need to discuss at that meeting, including the parking. So we'll have them come to that meeting, unless it's more convenient for us to have a special meeting, which, you know, that may be the case, if we all wanna just get together. We'll see how it works,
Yeah,
the timing
okay.
works out.
Okay, and just over.
But right now, I would just assume it'd be at the December meeting.
Mm.
But, I mean, that's a good point, you know, everybody gets busy, so we may wanna just pull that out and have a special meeting. But if there's nothing for us, if there's no discussion, you know, we can move on, but I kinda had that in there in case we wanted to talk about it. Everybody good? Alright, we are moving along. Item number 7, discussion on possible action related to the town center improvements. So this was a very generic item on here, but I kinda wanted it that way in case there's anything for us to discuss. One of them was this, pig chart that we did almost 2 years ago. And I emailed that out, and that's for, you know, Jesse and Mark to look at, mainly because they were not here when we did this. Adria has it up for us to see, but if y'all had a chance to look at it, we knocked out a lot of this stuff, which is good. We made a lot of progress over the past couple of years. Some of them big, some of them small, some of them we nixed all together, or someone else did, like Plaza 10.
What's the color code? I can't see that.
The color code was, it didn't print out, basically kill, challenge, implement, and the top one was, can you read that? What's the top one say? Possible. Yeah, that is bright.
I can't read it.
Yeah, I can't read that either.
Well, I can comment on line item 40, the bottom one. I've been talking to Frontier, and there was they gave me some ballpark figures of about $1,000 for each tower to put up for a hotspot. Now, then they asked me how urgent this was, and I told them it wasn't really that urgent, and then when I pushed them, I said, oh yeah, yesterday we quit that business. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, that sounds a bit convenient, but anyway, there are some other people that can do that, and it's just a matter of getting a cost. And I've asked for price for having one at Jarbo, one at the boat ramp, and one at Sundial. And then, you know, it could be some, we don't know what it's gonna cost us yet as far as the usage, but it's probably something like you can get 15 minutes or something like that, and then you have to wait for 45 minutes before you can get back on again or something like that. Because otherwise it will be abused totally.
Thomas, do you know what happened to the hotspot we used to have at the pool?
No, but I heard from Chris that it hasn't worked in forever. That was just a Wi-Fi router. But if we get a hotspot thing at Jarbo, it will cover that, because in a clear line of sight, they will cover probably about 1,000 feet, or maybe even up to 1,500. But in a crowded area, probably about 500 feet.
Yeah, it should cover both, okay.
I haven't asked for more than 3 because it's probably going to be sufficient.
Okay.
When it says implement, does that mean it's already in progress?
No, I don't know why that verbiage was necessarily used, because it almost makes it sound like that that it was approved. I think it just means, let's move forward to discuss which ones we want to do and approve. Because it was a big chart, so we did this with council and had a joint workshop, and it was mainly an EDC list of just brainstorming, just things, possible projects back then that we wanted to do. And one of the things that we did during the joint workshop was work with council and decide, assign them numbers, feasibility, and how much we actually wanted them. So the
recommendation was all the green ones was supposed to get done, and most of them are, I would say, done.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Except for that facade improvement grant, that's been kind of coming up to the surface every once in a while.
Right.
And the other goal of this, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it back up, is I'd like to make another, it doesn't have to be a pick chart, but just a list of projects that the EDC would like to happen or like to see in town center. That doesn't necessarily mean that we will do them, that doesn't necessarily mean EDC will fund them, but just things that we would like to see, and we can list them out. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to have another workshop with council, I would assume, in the next few months. So we're all on the same page, and especially now that we brought back the town center committee. So
Johnny, that number 16, facade improvements, I believe we decided it just could be case-by-case basis.
Right.
We did, but then it keeps resurfacing, in various versions.
And that's fine. We just kind of left it as a general business grant, small business grant application that we've used a couple of times.
I would say what we did for Salt Creek, is under that umbrella.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that worked well. So yeah, we can. That's one thing that we'll keep, and we can even list it out on the website.
Did you say you sent this out, or you're going to send this out?
I sent this out earlier today.
Okay, all right.
So, again, it's a very broad agenda item. It's just be thinking about projects that we would like to take on or have someone take on, and then one of the reasons why we did this is so we could assign champions to each one. Because, we get in here and we talk, we would like this to happen, but we need to say, we need to have people champion these projects, so that's their homework, and when we come back. So, a lot of these, I really would just like to update this, or probably put it in a completely different format, and just have an EDC list of town center projects that we like done. From the smallest things that may not cost anything to large projects, and we can start discussing them, assigning champions.
This looks a little broader than just town center.
It was, yeah. And again, this is just from 2 years ago, because I wanted you guys to kind of see.
So are we saying you want to set one up specific to the town center area so that we can use?
I think so, just because, well, no, we don't have to. We can have 2 of them, but
I just kind of clarify.
I think a lot of the projects that we're going to be doing will be in the town center. Aside from some things like you said, like bringing businesses in, that's something that we should always have in our mind. But this is just so we can discuss it with Plaza 10, council, and the town center committee. We all need to be on the same page, because I feel like the EDC is going to be funding most of the town center stuff. So we need to be discussing.
One thing we can ask then about is that 14 pedestrian bridge over Jarbo. That has also been discussed at council, right? Has that come to any conclusion, or is it just something that we would like to have?
Yeah, I think Brent actually has been working and found a grant for that. You know, it's a couple of years going forward, but I think someone from the GLO was already here taking photos and stuff.
Okay.
So he acted like it seemed really promising to have that taken care of.
Is that on the outbound side of the bridge?
It's on the east side, inbound.
Oh, okay.
The latest plan was basically a dock with a super long, all it is a pier, connects one side to the other, $85,000 to $90,000.
Well, 'cause you've already got a pedestrian path going down past Schaefer's, down, you know, past all the boat
But that's a private dock.
Right.
Okay, so that pathway is private, okay.
And then because of TxDOT, you're not allowed to attach anything to the bridge.
Right, yeah, it has to be independent.
That path was not on the Schaefer property, it's on the right of way, so we should put it in, and TxDOT is really tough about connecting to their base. And, we looked into it, you get a 200-foot, it's about 200 feet, and you really wanna clear it both directions, you get a prefabricated, like designed to rust pedestrian bridge like in Seabrook, or again, for $80,000, you gotta bring a crane in and set it in place, or two footers on either side, so it's possible, it's just a dollar number keeps being the roadblock.
Yeah, I think, and again, Brent can chime in next time, or, you know, you can ask him individually, but I think, this grant, that's exactly what they're gonna do, a prefab, you know, pour the footers and they just drop it in place. Like you see in in a lot of residential neighborhoods. I think they look good, man. I'm just like needed to walk across it.
Personally, I wouldn't put that up until we did something to the bridge, because it's gonna look completely different than the bridge.
Yeah.
You'll have this structure there, the pedestrian bridge is gonna look a whole lot nicer than our current entry bridge.
And I think that keeps getting demoted, right, on the
We're taking it out, so there's no telling when that's gonna happen.
Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of my point, and, you know, frankly, I don't see a pedestrian usage being worth that kind of effort, personally, because
It's more of a safety issue, actually, yeah.
you know, I've heard that, and I think what I've heard was there's been one person in 40 years that's been hit, and to me, that's not brings to the level of a safety issue, because 90% of the people are supposed to be half of them don't walk on the right side of the road when they're supposed to, and that's on them. But then most of the people are either in golf carts or other stuff. Now, there's some staggering home from Schaefer's and other places that may happen, but, I mean, do we wanna spend several $100,000 to put a pedestrian bridge
Well,
up
I
there
think
they're
that-
gonna miss anyway?
I don't remember what the grant was, but it was like 80% or maybe even 100%. I think it was like 80% or 100%, this grant. I mean, we'll be covered something, I mean, we'll have.
It's probably not gone anywhere since the last time we heard about it.
Okay.
Getting back to this list, would it be possible to separate it between quality of life and revenue-based projects?
Sure,
You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
Because, I mean, there's a pretty good mixture there of what I would call quality of life versus other ones that could potentially drive revenue, and that's what the town center is revenue driver, so.
Yeah, it'll be both, so, yeah, we can do whatever, we can have multiple categories. It's just gonna be a living document, it'll just keep getting updated. And again, we're probably not gonna use this is just to kind of refresh everybody's mind of what we've done before. And to kind of realize how many of these things we've actually accomplished.
It's funny, we just talked about the wayfinding in the Pool and Parks Committee, last night.
It's
Like a fun map.
Right, and that's something, again, I wanted to ask Brent about, is you can use hot tax for that. And I realize we don't have any hotels or anything, but we're collecting something for the short-term rentals. I don't know if we have anything in there, if it's $300, if it's $6,000, I have absolutely no idea. Probably not $6,000. But, I don't think we have any real plans how to use the little bit of hot tax that we are collecting, but you can use that on wayfinding, so that's something to talk about. I know Ronnie's looking at wayfinding some, but I think it's gonna be important for us to make a list of the things that we would like to, again, back to town center, specifically in town center, because we will be funding a lot of this stuff. And that way, when we do go into a meeting or talk about it with council or the town center committee, we already have a long list of things that we would like to see. And I mean, you know, talk to people in the community, maybe people that don't ever go up there but just drive by, maybe they have multiple complaints, or maybe there's something they'd like to see. Just a big long list, hopefully not too many complaints, but I think with the brewery moving in and the fact that we're about to completely redo all the palm trees, a lot of stuff is gonna come in at the same time. So we're gonna have to pay attention to our cash flow statement. That you can see our most recent one looks pretty good actually. But it's gonna really change the way that whole front looks, particularly the brewery. I mean, that's gonna completely change the way it looks with that western facing facade.
Do we have a landscape plan from the brewery at all? Did they submit anything?
Not for landscape. I mean, we have all their plans. You know, everything was approved, but they didn't have any landscape on there.
Okay.
But you know, we have $80,000 or $70,000 or $80,000 budgeted for just town center landscaping that we have, and you know, I feel like the palm trees are going to be a completely separate project. So, you know, this is something that we need to be talking about too. So, you know, the brewery's coming in, we're going to be replacing all those palm trees. We need to make sure everything is in congruence and looks good, and which is another thing that, you know, one of the people that helped us go through Walker Consultants for parking was David Hoffman, who did a lot of the original town center stuff, and I've been speaking with him, and I'd like for him to kind of be involved and help us walk through all this stuff. He's kind of partially retired, but you know, he's already approached me with some ideas that he just works on when he has sleepless nights, but I think he would be interested in helping us out with the town center, helping mapping some of this stuff out. Because I think if one little group does some landscaping and one little group does some, I know there's discussion of lights going down Aspen, you know, we need to have a professional that's making all of that work together, and not have a bunch of little individual stuff that, you know, where people aren't necessarily talking or it doesn't go together. And this is
so when we redo the trees, replant that, are we gonna add the landscaping along Marina Bay Drive right there?
I think we should.
What we originally planned?
I think we should, and that's...
And add some signage? Are we gonna do that as part of that?
I think so. I think that should be added to the list. I think it would look really nice if we had the same kind of theme all the way down our main drag, maybe not the whole entire city limits, but at least the town center going down Marina Bay Drive. I think that would look fantastic. Not necessarily the exact same as the entrance, in case we, you know, spend a lot of money on really nice trees, but...
Yeah, there's something that skies the parking lot.
But that's an example. All that kind of needs to look the same and work together, and I think we need a professional to help us kind of see what that looks like.
Hey, Johnny, just a reminder, at one point we had a mural project that we're working on for Aspens, which got, well, we ran out of money, number one. Number two, when you started all the flopper work, the balcony and everything, we kind of decided to wait till that was all finished, and then see if there'd even, if there's enough room for murals, they're too busy, but at some point, we might want to think about a little bit of funding to help them at least paint the building.
I agree. I think, you know, now that our cash flow is better, we can look at, you know, more small business and facade grants.
Yeah.
You know, like we discussed all along. Adri, do you mind bringing up that photo of the Galveston? My cousin's wife works for the Historic Foundation in Galveston, and she just helped do this project for their Seaport exhibit. It's actually opening this weekend, and that's not a plug. That's just it just happened to be the time. But they recently did this, and I thought this was an interesting idea, because they also had a gray corrugated metal building that, you know, doesn't necessarily take to a mural very well, but this is an option. So use a company that made frames, and then it's just kind of like you print it on there. And once they get old, or you want to change the theme, you can do that anytime. I think it may be a better option than murals. But I think where this may look good is on the back of Frank's buildings, facing, you know, the Okies area. And it's something for us to discuss, but it, you know, it could be a welcome to Clear Lake Shores, or it could have a town center theme, or I think that could be a good option instead of murals.
Well, the problem with, if you're referring to Aspen's.
Not necessarily, I'm talking about Frank's the two buildings that face, you know, that face the whole square.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about for this.
Okay. All right.
Aspen's, you know, there's no room, I wouldn't think. Paint
Yeah,
is
there's not
probably the
enough,
way to go.
there's not enough canvas, really. It's probably gonna, I mean,
Not enough canvas.
yeah, I mean, there's not enough flat space.
After they built that balcony,
It's all broken up with the palapas and the balconies.
Yeah, I don't know if he had plans to paint that, do we know? No?
What's that?
Did he have his own plans to paint that, or?
Well, we've been talking about it, he was like, well, are y'all still considering mural or whatever? And I said, well, maybe whatever. It was, you know, the plan was, wait till he finishes, he's putting in a couple extra doors and.
Sure.
We'll see what it looks like when he's finished and then talk about it. But, yeah, I think we should help a little bit.
Sure, and, you know, if we did something like that, we would be able to say, well, you know, we'd like it to be one of these two colors, or, you know, something to
Yeah.
kind of match everything, and.
Right. So that's what we could suggest that.
But that's an example, you know.
Okay. Anyway, that's still alive. It's not dead.
Okay.
Can I ask a question a little bit on the side of the topic of town center, but Jackie's, are we anywhere, where are we? Are we doing anything?
Jackie's? Well,
I don't know.
to quote the owner of Jackie's, we're still swimming in the same pool. So he hasn't completely rejected annexation, but they're very, very hesitant about being under the buildings codes of Clear Lake Shores. There's a couple of things he's done he wouldn't have been able to do. So he's very reluctant, and would also put him under the fire marshal.
Well, that's probably a good thing, the fire marshal.
He's under the fire marshal if he's in the county already, I think. He's in the WCSE 12. So,
Well, they added that room upstairs? Okay, they didn't have to do sprinklers or anything. And now, Vincent's adding a room upstairs, he's now gonna have to put in sprinklers.
he's gonna cook up there though, right?
No,
I thought he was putting the kitchen anyway.
no, because of the occupancy.
You can't have a public, gathering space that, will hold more than 100 people without sprinklers, that's a state law.
Right, well,
Maybe his is gonna be smaller.
apparently, none of that's being enforced in Galveston County across the street. That's the issue. That's the issue, but to answer your question, it's still alive. I have another meeting with him next week. He's been traveling all over. Every time I call him, it's boop, 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 boop. Where you at now? In Columbia. I mean,
But Johnny, should we then talk to Brent and see if there's something amenable that could be possible instead, you know, without promising anything at this point, where I mean, I understand that there's, I can see the gap is quite large, but if something is already done, it's already done, right?
Yeah, we absolutely need to give it a really good college try, good stab at it. It's just low-hanging fruit, but I think the very first thing is just to get a very informal meeting.
well, he hasn't yet said what he wants, but he basically said it would be at least 50% refund, and maybe for a really long time.
I think the first step is just have a very informal, you know, just go over there and talk to him. I don't know if that's something you can put together.
Well, I mean, I've talked
When
to
he's
him
back in
twice,
town?
and we're supposed to have another meeting, it's just he's been traveling.
Okay. Well, I think that's the first step.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's only gonna help if we have a little bit more enticing of, again, related to town.
Well, I mean,
center.
I totally understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Totally.
But we need to give it a really good stab at it.
Well, Thomas, to answer your question a little better, I've asked him to tell us what he wants.
Yep.
Have that
At
be a
least,
starting point.
yeah, then we have a starting point, yeah.
Yeah, and he hasn't said that yet, other than it's gonna be a big rebate for a long period of time. But the main thing is being under the city's, building inspection and fire and all that. It's a hard one to,
So I guess what we should take away from this is maybe individually, if everyone wants to just email me what you would like to see. Ronnie, you made a list, I saw a few months ago, you and I kind of briefly talked about it, town center bullet points. I don't know if you still have that saved, but, I think I have it printed out, but there was some good stuff on there. So I think we should make a spreadsheet of some of the things that we would like to see, just regardless of, it's a big project, small, if it costs money, if it's something we're gonna fund, let's just make a list, and then we'll have something that we can start tackling and chipping away at. Yeah, we discussed that, a lot of the stuff we did. You talking about this? Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is just from 2 years ago, I just wanted to bring up, how we did it. Anything specific on here, or anything that y'all would like to see on this task list?
Why do y'all wanna kill the Deborah Harper cleanup of her property there?
What's that?
I noticed it was on there, but it was highlighted in red. Can't remember what item it was.
Yeah, I don't know why we did that, 'cause that's something that I think would be, and I know you've been speaking to her, right?
Yeah,
that may be something that you wanna champion, even if it doesn't have to be anything grand.
Debbie and I have actually developed a decent friendship, just going to lunch, talking, kicking around the ball, just talking about life. And I've talked to her a lot about that property. She wants a legacy for her children there, is what she's told me, but the problem is no banks are lending to do any kind of development right now, and even more so, not to people that have no experience doing it. So I've actually filled a room full of investors and discussed a potential project there as well, and I've got some interested parties, but it'd be a pretty challenging piece of land to develop on. It just will be. It's just awkward, triangle shaped. You have to build at a certain height, and then of course there's the issue with the parking, so.
I mean, what we need is more parking, but that's not really a legacy, is it?
Yeah. So I've talked to some local commercial real estate brokers that I'm friends with, and one of them is at Zan Real Estate, which I'm sure you guys have seen Zan Real Estate everywhere, but and I talked to them about the possibility of building a two-story retail mixed use and having parking on the first floor, kind of like a modified parking garage, and then having retail on the second floor. And verbatim he told me, you don't want to do that because nobody likes to go upstairs when they shop, which he's probably 100% accurate. So, but I still think that space can be cleaned up. You know, it's become a dumping ground.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody who's pouring a concrete pad in their backyard, and what's left over, they go over there and they dump it right there, you know, or someone's cleaning up some rocks and they dump it over there, or trash or whatever.
I think that's a good example, yeah, just having that conversation, even if it's just, you know, cleaning it up and, allowing, because people are parking on it already.
They are.
I mean, why not?
Embrace it, lean into
Johnny,
it.
Well, maybe the brewery can rent it for parking
That's
in the beginning, yeah.
Right, that's something that we've talked about, and again, the parking consultants, are gonna tell us more, and they're specifically gonna be looking at that property to see how many spots you could get there as a temporary basis. Because even if it's just cleaned up, some parking stops, and then a bunch of gravel, I mean,
You
again, I
can
hate to
still
be in the
turn it
parking
into a
business,
green
but
space. I think that's the future for that property, is parking and green space.
I would probably agree with that.
You know, it's right on the water, it's pretty, you know, it's a good view, and just having an area I don't know, a decked area where someone can grab a beer at the brewery and go sit right there by the water, you know?
Exactly. I think there could be, yeah, a mutual benefit for all parties.
Jesse, did she say if she's ever recontacted, the brewery?
No, we did talk about, so I looked at her survey, And her survey, and you guys probably already know this, but the survey actually shows that little canal between her property and Aspen's as filled in. So I don't know when all that was dredged out or when it was done, but her survey, you know, being as old as it is, it shows all of that land. So she was going to contact, I guess, the GLO or someone to ask if she could fill that in, because that could potentially add 2,000 to 3,000 more square foot to that property easily. So.
No, but what I was referring to is she had gotten a communication from the brewery.
Oh, okay.
Talking about doing something with this property. And
You know, we haven't talked about that.
Yeah, well, she said she never got back to him because she's been so busy.
Yeah, we were supposed to have lunch on Friday, and she actually, I think she broke her hand or something. And so so I don't know how that happened, but, so we'll probably have lunch sometime in the next couple of weeks, and I'll ask her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Water, it's partially done down there where, Frank's place is, you know, they started with the Dr. walkway. We had to come all the way down to, Minnie's place, and that way people could walk down that boardwalk.
Yep, that's something
That looked great.
that's something that, Hoffman and I were talking about, because, you know, the initial town center plans had that, big spine, you know, pedestrian spine right down the middle of it. But that was a big grandiose plan, and, you know, the town center ended up kind of slow rolling and being a lot more organic. So there was really no way of doing that, you know, through existing buildings and stuff. But, you know, we could do it along the water there. So.
You could extend Aspen Road all the way to Short.
Yep.
That was the only town center area. That's a long game.
That is probably the long game.
Extend it where?
Aspen goes all the way down to a road called Short Road. It goes out to 29th Fourth between YES and Arts Gallery.
And there is a little, you know, property there that's kind of a third in our ETJ, right there on the bayou. And that could be a potential parking area that the consultants are going to look into as well. That's going to be one of their targeted to see, does it make sense to have parking there. It gets really low, but you know, you can do anything if you get creative. That would be a perfect example if, you know, if that was more parking, a boardwalk all the way down. When we say boardwalk, you know, a path, walking path.
Does the parking calculations include all of the area around Skippers, between Skippers, Jolie's, and all that? Yeah.
That they will, yeah. They're looking at that area too, in case we need to start contacting them. Yeah, I think we'll know our options, I think, more once we get the study back. That's all I had with that agenda item. I know we kind of, so just everyone want to make a list, and we'll start compiling it and chipping away and adding names, and if you talk to people in the community what they would like to, you know, see visually, or you know, we kind of talk to the same people every time. Everyone has the same ideas. But okay, that's it. We'll adjourn. 7:15.